Yeah, you still pull a notes there.
Yeah, yep.
After this, I'll just...
All right, so here's so your wiring diagram again for your transformer, and then how to solder. So we're going to have our plug here. We're going to have one. So we're going to first identify which one is our neutral and which one's our hot. Remember, the one that has the flat blade, that's going to be the one that's or the larger, fatter blade. That's going to be your neutral. That one's going to go directly right to your transformer. The narrower one then is going to be your hot wire, and that's the one that's going to go to your fuse. So when you're going to your fuse, which is this one right here, and you just cut the wire in half, then what you're going to do is you're going to strip your wire back. So here's my insulation. Then you're going to take the other half, strip that one back just a little bit. You don't need much, maybe less than a 3/16 of an inch or so. And then you're going to take the one from your fuse. And that wire is going to lay here, and then you're going to have your insulation for that fuse holder. You strip those wires, and you're going to lay those two wires right on top of each other, so they're just parallel with each other. And then what you're going to want to do is then when you take your soldering iron, you're going to take your soldering iron, and you're going to bring in your soldering iron and heat up one side of that wire. Now sometimes to get that heat to start to conduct through the wires and stuff, what sometimes you have to do is just kind of put a little dab where your heat gun is. Put a little dab on that heat gun and stuff to make a little connection between the two wires there and get the heat to transfer through there. Typically what we like to do is we like to bring our heat gun in from one side and then bring in our solder from the other side. Because that solder is going to want to suck up towards the heat and stuff. That way we know that we're penetrating that solder all the way through the wires and stuff. And you're just going to put on just a little bit. You don't need very much, just enough to cover your wires and stuff and get a little, so it kind of looks like, I'll do it vertically here. So here's this wire. And here's this wire. It's just what it's going to do is it's just going to kind of make a little bridge there. And you're just going to kind of bridge that together with some solder. Now prior to soldering those together too, I should make sure that you put in your string tubing. Get your string tubing on make sure you put your string tubing. And you only need enough string tubing just to cover up your solder joint. You don't need the big long piece, you just need enough to go over the insulation of both wires and cover up that solder joint. So don't forget about your string tubing. So then after that, that's how you're gonna just solder them up. You're just gonna solder those two together, and then you're gonna put in your, you're gonna have your fuse. And that's going to come out, with your insulation. And then that's going to go up to the two black wires. Those are going to go to your two black wires. And then this one here, this other wire then can just go, and then you're going to just make a solder joint on that. And then with a little string tubing on that. So you're gonna have, you're gonna have a solder joint here, 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 and here. So you're gonna have 4 different solder joints there. Then when you get into, then on the other half, your secondary of your transformer, and then we're gonna have our center cap on there. And that's where we're going to use our banana jack, or the female banana jack. And those are going to be what we call solder cups. So I'll draw it. Here's our banana jack, and then we have our little solder cup. And the easiest way to do this is, since these wires are already tinned, meaning that they already have a little coating of solder on them already. A lot of times what we like to do is, even before we even do this step, what we like to do is we just like to call what we call tin the wire. And it's just basically kind of prepping that wire so that it takes in the solder from the soldering iron. So you just take the single wire, heat up the wire, bring in your solder up to it, and just get it tinned with a little solder. I'm going to make a little bigger solder cutter. So here's my banana jack, my exploded view of my. So what you're going to do is, the easiest way to do this is to make sure you put your insulator that's coming from your banana jack, make sure you get that insulator on there first before you solder this thing on. And even with me telling you that, you're about half of you are going to still forget it. I forget all the time to put on my insulators or my shrink tubing and stuff before I solder stuff. But what you're going to do is you're going to bring in your heat gun again. You're going to bring it in, and you can just kind of bring it in on the side of this. And the more surface of that tip that you get onto that solder cup. So if I bring my soldering iron and I bring it almost vertical with my solder cup, and I get a lot of surface on that solder cup, it's going to heat up that solder cup a lot quicker. Okay, so kind of want to get a surface area of that soldering tip on there. Get that solder cup heated up, and then bring in your solder and fill up that solder cup with some solder. And then as it cools down, then your solder is going to kind of make a little concave little thing like that. Then you can go ahead and then take your wire. Once you get that solder cup filled up a little bit with some solder, this wire is being tinned. You're going to just bring down that wire, heat up your solder cup again, bring your wire down into that solder cup, and then keep the heat on it for just a little longer. And you'll see that solder all of a sudden just kind of flow into one. It's going to flow right into the wire that's already been tinned and then the solder cup. And then you can go ahead and release it. And it's, and you're going to get, you're not looking for, you don't need to have this glob of solder like right here, just enough to get that solder going, and then once it kind of cools down, it's going to kind of make a little cup like that. Okay? Same thing here, with this wire here, if I have the tip coming in perpendicular to the wire, I'm not going to get much heat transfer. But you can kind of get, get a certain amount of surface from my soldering iron onto that wire, then I can heat up that wire a lot easier, and then that solder will flow a lot easier. But you got to get that wire heated up first and stuff before it'll start flowing that solder. You got to get up to that melting point of that solder and stuff like that, and do the same thing there. Okay? So then you'll just have your 2 red banana jacks and then your black one going into your solder cup. Okay? That kind of help out then? Anyone have any questions on soldering that stuff up? I'll see if I can find a couple of what we call helping hands, or just a couple of alligator clips, and then you can hold your 2 wires together so that you can hold them perpendicular with their parallel with each other. I'll go find those helping hands. There should be a set over by the side, and I'll double check if there is. But that's all you really need to do, and then you'll have your 12.6 volt transformer ready to go. Alright, so that takes care of the transformer. Anyone have any other questions while we're up on the board? We're all good to go? Alright, so we want to get all our labs done today so we can start over. We're going to start doing meters on Monday. So, yep. I do have the shrink tubing, so when you get to your soldering, let me know, and or if you're going to do it at home, you'll make sure I get you the shrink tubing.
I don't think our parts came up with banana jacks. I think that might have been like a year.
No, they should have.